So I figured I'd give everyone kind of a brief overview of the work being done on the sand ridge here. When I first started here, this area in front of me about to where I'm standing was completely filled with staghorn sumac, or some people call it smooth sumac. There was a line of trees right here, kind of came around to where I'm standing, and then kind of running from this mound where my white post is, coming around to this, there's all kinds of brush through here, down where that dead cedar is, around to those trees, and kind of through that area. So it was kind of a, excuse me, a cutoff area from the rest of the prairie that you see down kind of further over the way. But this area is what's sand, and the prairie down that way is more of a mesic prairie, black dirt. It used to be a hog pasture, and I don't know if that's part of it. If that all, the organic matter, basically the poop from the pigs mixed in, or it's also just happens to be where, the ridge ends. It's kind of the bottom end of it. As you work kind of down that way through the other prairie, there's actually a line in the vegetation, almost in that split to the trees, where certain times of year you can tell the vegetation changes and the soil goes from sandy to that black dirt. So as I said, this is what started. It started as a project to keep this area open for box turtles. They were known from this property. I think the last known report now is probably 25 years ago. But I had learned about nesting habits of the turtles, and this was a last open sandy area, and I was hoping that if they're still here, they're going to nest here. After I started, I did confirm there are turtles in the area, just not on this property. They're less than a quarter mile away, kind of down the ridge, a little different. So while cutting sumac, this area over here, you can kind of see our leftover brush pile. Well, it's a new burn pile, I guess. But down, that tree right there, and then all the way up through right here, you can see the stumps. It was a grove of cedar trees. And one day when I was cutting, I believe it was Chris Smith, said, "Hey, when are you going to take out those cedars?" So I got permission from the county, and we took out those cedars and we piled them up right there and burned them. And from there, we also decided to clear into here. And like I said, you can see all these stumps. This was all forested up until, this past winter. I mean, even a lot of this was up until just a few months ago. I've been kind of working on this whenever I can. So, we're pushing back and opening up more and more area. I don't know how well this should show up in video. There are, some prairie flowers coming up in the area already. I know there's some lead plant coming back further up that way into the trees. I'm not sure if that's left over from what was growing before the trees encroached, or if that's blowing in from the South Prairie where it was replanted. I think it was 1997 that the old hog pasture down there was replanted. So but again, this is just a lot more area opening up. I'd say we're doubling it. Something else we're doing is that there's a stake. I don't know if you saw it earlier. I got kind of right about there by that tree. There's a white stake. And there's a cactus plant I found there. And it turns out we had some down by the gate as well. A neighbor who actually has the box turtles on his property had taken some cactus from this property 40 years ago. And so we had brought some of it back and initially put it where I'm standing. And unfortunately, when we were burning that, the excavator ran it all over. So I ended up moving it, and I'll go show you that in a second. But the other day I was here, and even where the excavator ripped it up, there's that little cactus plant popping back up. He's determined to live. And if we come and if I find my other stick here, I got one over there and this one right here. You'll see there's two down here. There's this little guy popping up there, and there's one back. I hope you guys can see it. The sun's glaring on my screen. So that's popping up as well. And then over here we have another itty bitty one you can kind of see growing there. with a dead one next to it. So I don't know if those ones I thought were dead are springing back up, or either way, I'm happy to see them. We might be burning in this area again, which means there might be machinery here this winter. So I'm debating moving these. Again, these ones weren't naturally right here. These are ones we originally transplanted this area, so moving them is not going to be a huge deal. We do have a lot more over this way. This mound, if I recall, we assume some people used to ride dirt bikes on this when it was private, and so this is a mound of dirt. I have this white stake. I usually take pictures from here as a point of reference. So this other stake here, which used to have a red cap, is marking our nursery patch of cactus. You can see cactus there, there's cactus down on the hill there, some over there. Now if you see those further over, hopefully. I got a few popping back up on here. And some little guys. This is a patch I kind of mentioned the other day in a post I thought was dead, and it sprung back to life. So we chose this as a nursery area because it's on a slope where I'm pretty sure the machinery aren't going to grow. So this here is all transplanted in from the neighbor's property. And another one down the road, there's a cemetery that used to have some cactus, or had cactus grown in it, and they didn't like that because kids would step on it with bare feet. So we pulled it out of there and moved it over here as well. Same species and all. And by the way, this is, a lot of people thought it was eastern prickly pear, which, while not common in the state, is you know, abundant, I guess, relatively. This is actually big root prickly pear, which is a state threatened species. So we were kind of happy to find out that's what it was. I first learned when I learned there was more than one cactus species in Iowa. I learned how to key them out, and just by needle counts keyed this out to big root prickly pear. Later confirmed with our DNR botanist, John Pearson. He had been out here in the past. They were big root. We later got pictures of some of the flowers to confirm they're big root as well. So now another interesting thing here, I'm gonna, pardon me while I walk around this way a little bit. Look at that nice open area though. Look at all this, if you can see this down below me, all this sand. This is how I'd really love everything to look eventually. Nice, sparse, sandy area, just some good sand prairie species growing in. So getting down here, there's a kind of a feature here. It caught my eye back when I first started this. As you can tell, there's the slopes kind of down here, and on that far side it picks back up, and the terrain actually scoops back up here towards us. You know, you can kind of see the low points right in here. And what I realized this was is an old sand blowout. Back there's some old well, they're not satellite photos from the 30s, but aerial photos from the 30s, and this was all open sand, and that's kind of what's motivated me to get it back that way. But yeah, back when there was no trees here and the sand would blow through here freely, or the wind would blow through here freely, this was shaped, you know, carved out just like you would see on a sand dune. So it obviously needs more work. Those two trees there in the middle, you know, we've been leaving them for now, and I know they're nice, good, healthy trees, and people are, a couple people have been upset with me for cutting some of those down, but you know, it's a bigger picture here, or the importance of the sand ridge ecosystem, or the sand prairie ecosystem, and those trees may go. And now we are, I'm not saying we're cutting down all trees, we're obviously leaving some. I think, so actually if you look, that little tree right above that dead cedar log, that one, and there's a few down that way in that line, are actually Burr Oaks, and we are saving the Burr Oaks. There's actually, if you go back along the ridge that way, there's a bunch that you can see in old historic photos. If you go back and find them in the trees, they have wide open branches, and they're just big, beautiful trees, and we want to open those back up. And if we can't save those, because some of them are dying already from being smothered, I'd like to let some of the other small Burr Oaks grow up and become the same thing. And so the top of this You know, again, where I'm walking here, again, you can see the slope. We want to open up this whole face, but the top of this up there, at least for a little ways in, I want to kind of restore back to an oak savanna, favoring the Burr Oaks, because those are more of a species that should have been here. So let's go this way a little bit. See some of our handiwork back there, some cedar trees that came out. We just haven't removed those ones for burning yet. They should come out this year yet. This is kind of where we'll be working this winter. Jim Sirach usually helps me. You should check out his page, herpjournal.com. He talks about doing some herping adventures in Iowa. And then Christopher Smith, he comes down from Minnesota and helps quite a bit. A lot of this we've been funding just out of our own pockets. We did take some donations, and I got the brush cutter this year, which has made a huge difference. I really wish I would have done that years ago. And then we raised some money to get Jim a better chainsaw this year, so we're gonna rock and roll on this. Kind of cool thing here, you'll notice this stump right here. I don't know if you saw a couple, but this stump was falling straight at me. So this log was right here on the ground, and I cut it up and cleaned it away, and somehow did not notice this right next to it. I think I was working in the winter, and I don't know if snow was covered or the vegetation is just barely blocking it, but there's a fairly big patch here. You know, it kind of goes into the vegetation there a ways. You know, it obviously wasn't marked with a white stake when it was spotted. They did a burn this spring, and after the burn, Jim Sirach and his wife Laura were walking here, and Laura spotted this after the burn, and they thought for sure it was one that either I had transplanted in or, you know, already knew about, and it turns out I didn't. No clue it was here, so he put the log by it to kind of reference where it was, and we have now dedicated this one. It is called the Laura Sirach Memorial Cactus Patch. And if she's watching this, Laura, you need to come tend to your cactus patch and maybe open up the vegetation around it. Otherwise, I'll get to it eventually. So we also then, when Jim found that, what I thought he was talking about was between these two white stakes up here. This is again where the back of the bowl is coming back up. And so this was originally a bare spot, you know, with no trees. And so we brought over some cactus to here too. We got a line of it from there. Where's the next one? Right there's the next patch. Walking this way, there's some little ones right here. All through there up to the stake. Oop, my shadow just hit it. Some cactus down in there. We got a couple growing down in there. This one's looking real nice. Look at that all. You know, it's just funny. People don't expect cactus to grow in Iowa, and yet it grows all the way up into Canada, if I recall. I know my grandparents had it on their house in Lodi, Wisconsin when I was a kid. Quick note, any of my herping friends watching this are going to know exactly what this is for, but part of what we're doing here too is surveying the property to see what wildlife is here, and put the boards down, and every now and then you get lucky and there's snakes and mice and other stuff under there. So they're scattered all over. So let's go back to this winter. You know, this is probably this grove of trees here ahead of us. There's cedars mixed in with these oaks, and the cedars are definitely coming down. We might do the oaks too, just to open this up. You know, all this stuff, all this in here is going to come out. I tried to work on some of it already. I'm just using the brush cutter. It's got a circular saw blade on it too. And so this was actually, all this fallen stuff here was actually big sumac. And so a lot of that's been taken out. It gets a little tough to do by yourself because it tangles up on itself. And when you cut one, it falls over onto the next one, and it just makes it hard to get to. Again, this goes into walking down the ridge. And again, That right in there, that's all staghorn sumac all mixed into some stuff. You can kind of see the redder leaves. That's all going to come out. This one, I don't know if it will or not. It's half dead, so we'll have to see. You know, there was, again, a lot of little stuff in here. This is all littler oaks and other things, about 1 inch. I've been trying to clear them out little by little. You know, you can see the cedar right here. I'm sorry if I don't point exactly right away. I gotta look at the camera to see where I'm pointing. But yeah, so we have cedar, cedar, cedar. I think that's, and then cedar there. And those will definitely be coming out. And the nice thing is that we keep hitting these patches where if you go from the far side, you hit this wall. But when you come in here, you realize this actually is going to open up a big wide open area. And then there's another little wall and then a wide open area. If you notice the white post here, Jim and myself and my son David were walking through here, coming from that way. I mowed this trail the other day, and David, somewhere right in this area, just found one ear or one pad of a cactus. And I mean, not like growing, like it was loosened on the ground. And we initially thought that, you know, the cactus over there had a deer had eaten it or something and dragged it, and that's how cactus can spread. Later in the year, after the burn, after Laura found her patch of cactus, I decided to look for more. It turns out there's a patch growing right here along this tree. Again, I'm hoping my shadows don't ruin things, but you know, there's a decent bit of it down here, you know, getting down into the branches there. There was some growth of it back here, which I don't know if an animal took off with it or what happened, but it was just some small little thumbs sticking up. So I don't know what happened with it. So that's kind of an odd one that it's growing. You know, the question was it there before the tree? So we'll have to decide what to do about that and figure that out. You kind of see, again, more cedars. These all have to come out. If you get up here behind these cedars, you can kind of see the sky opens up, the canopy's gone. You know, it's going to open up a lot more space on the sand ridge as well. There's a lot of this fallen stuff. That's actually not a tree we cut. That just fell on its own a while back. It's just been there. So we're going to try to clear out all this. And again, I know people love oak trees, and I apologize, some of them are going to go. But I think we have more oak habitat in Iowa right now than sand ridge, and the north part of this property has a whole bunch. So I'm only going to take out a couple acres of them, and we're leaving a whole lot. As much as honestly I would love to, you know, open up the whole area again, the sand ridge is what's most important to me, and that's what I'm going to work on first. So that's again dying off trees. These will come out. Kind of see another open area here. I have to tell you guys, the other day I took a break from where I was working just to cut this trail, and I'm really happy I did. Look at the sand down there. You know, really, really, really loose. You kind of see this is all younger growth stuff. You know, so it's fairly new. It should come out pretty easily when we get down this way. We'll open up a lot of area. And then, again, if you spotted the white post, I was walking through with my friend Josh Otten, and when we were coming through, he spotted these here. So again, more cactus holding on. The little one right there by the post, you can see it. And then after the burn, I was over here checking on it, and I actually realized we have some over here as well, right there. There's actually more than that, but it's getting into the brush here, I think. And I believe I meant to bring a stake over at one point. Oh, either might be further down. And Jim and I were walking it. We came down somewhere down here lower and found even more. Apparently I'm gonna have to bring Jim back and tell him, hey, where was your cactus you found? because I remember it being pretty good ways down here. So, but again, you can, look at this under my feet here. It's just sand. It's not even that it's, a lot of people picture, when I say it's sand, that it's like this sand and dirt mixture, and this place is just sand. It was pushed up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago. A glacier came through here and, pushed this up. And if you actually walk off the backside to the north, there's just a drop off, which is, probably where the glacier was. But you see there's these rolling hills, you can tell I'm walking up them. And this is all from when it used to blow around after the glacier left it here. So kind of look here again, all the sand, the hills, but all cedar trees, a lot of this in here, some oaks. But we're going to try to clear all of this out. All of this needs to be back open. Let the sand get some sun. The sun will heat it up and should hopefully prevent things from growing back on it. So, every time I come over to this side, I want to take a few days from what I'm doing on the other end and just get over here and open this up too. But I think I am better in the long run working from one side to the other. I also think that when Jim and I actually start cutting this here, again, we wait till fall for that. Well, cutting with the chainsaws, at least I should say. Sorry. Well, I think we're gonna work through this quick. And so, and for the record, why we wait for the fall? Oh, there's Jim's other cactus. Look at that. Found one on the way back. So that's the other one Jim found. And again, if you look, kind of cactus there, kind of come up, and there's that white stake up there where the other one is. It's about 15 feet away. Oh, I didn't even, geez, when I looked at the two, so there's that one and that one. So good stuff going on over here. Anyways, again, we cut in the fall. Originally it just started because it was winter time when we first cut with the chainsaws. I do the sumac all throughout the year, is whenever I can. And so the chainsaw started just because we figured, one, it was cooler out, because getting used to wearing chainsaw chaps is kind of hot and warm. And when you're getting to cutting trees and holding the saw up, it makes you a little hot and sweaty. So we kind of just cut in the winter, and then the hope was too that as we cut them, they'd burn them in the winter. And the first year we cut, we're not allowed to burn them ourselves. Although, hey, Dana or any of the county people, if you're listening to this, let's talk about that some more, about what I need to do to get approved to do burns. I'll get a lot more done here. But we're not officially employees of the counties. We're doing this on a, like I said, as a volunteer basis. So we can't burn, and we were hoping they would, and they didn't. And I initially just left, the trees where they were, and one day decided they were in the way, and I started cutting them into smaller pieces and piling them. And the next winter they did burn them eventually, and I think maybe they realized how serious I was about cutting the trees down. And so, turns out in the wintertime, Dana Kellogg, our land manager for county conservation, he gets an extra helper for the winter when the roads department isn't using him. A guy goes by, his name is Mike. And I'm sorry, Mike, I don't know your last name. I don't remember it, at least, sorry. But Mike drives a big excavator with a claw on it. And he just comes right out here. And that ground is hard. He'll pull right up to that thing, and he'll just pick it up and bring it over to the burn pile. And there was even a day here, this far tree line over here, to kind of watch that as I get up to it. You will notice there's no cedar trees in it. And that's not to say there wasn't. And the fun thing is we cleared that all in a day. And what had happened is Jim and I came up to do some work and do some cutting, and we were going to work over here in this area, you know, actually part of what got cut down there. And when we pulled up, we saw smoke and realized a couple of the county guys were here burning. I'm like, well, hey, that's handy. And so, you know, what we decided to do is, rather than piling up the cedar trees and burn them later, you know, Mike already had most of their stuff cleaned up and piled and going. So we asked him, like, how about, as we cut them, pull them out and burn them? And so we probably started about here, and one day there were cedar trees all along that face, and we cut them all out. And Mike just pulled them out and burned them same day, and it was just amazing. I really, really wish we could do that every time we were cutting, that we just had Mike with the excavator moving them away. Well, then again, I should repost the video. There was a absolutely monster cedar over those trees. It's that stump, not the left one there, but that one right there about the center of my finger. I think that's a stump from it. It was probably 5 feet around at the bottom. And we were gonna cut it and have him pull it to the burn pile over here. And he goes, oh, you just want me to pull it down? Sure. And of course, he made me feel inadequate having a chainsaw. And because he went over that excavator and just pulled it down and just yanked it right off. So, I mean, really it'd be nice if Mike could just do that, but he's on limited time, you know, and like I said, Jim and I are doing this on free time, so between us cutting and then him moving to burn, though, it seems to work well so far. So, can't complain too much, I guess. So we'll walk down and show you. This is the first cactus I found on the property. Again, the county knew they were a little down by the gate, but that's what I first saw, and it was laying flat when I found it. It's adding some size to itself. You know, it looks like it's going to fruit here soon, I hope. I don't remember seeing it flower though, so some do, some don't. Yeah, so here's just another overview of the big open area. Another board there. We got a lot of those. Some of the Burr Oaks over here. Again, this was all small oaks. So again, there used to be, like I said, right between this stuff, kind of down here right in front of me and going into that stuff. You can kind of see this little brush here. And this was just walled off from that. It was completely separate. And one of the issues with that, by the way, is part of what's going to keep sandprairie active, aside from gophers actually tear up the soil quite a bit and help loosen up, but we need that wind blowing through here. And when there was a wall of trees all the way across here, I mean, there was no wind. And I remember after we opened up this stuff right in here, I came up here to work one winter, and it was a windy day, and I was actually pretty ecstatic to be standing up in here and feeling the wind, until I realized it was really cold. And so that kind of sucked. But I'm going into some brushy area, and from the ridge, I don't know if you see my truck right down there, my itty bitty truck. It's closer than you think, but that's the line that the ridge goes down, and then it cuts over across the street and back around some other property. So, but this is the main project area. Just kind of go back over. You know, we're cutting back to that tree line, removing some littler stuff. There's some raspberries down there that we're leaving. Obviously the turtles will like that for them. We have in this field, we used to run, I don't want to say used to, like I ran them for a year, and that's all I intended to, so it's not like we just stopped for whatever reason. But fun thing, this line of sand, it runs through here. Found an old fence under the ground. Apparently someone at one point just cut it off at the surface. That was kind of fun. Found old fence posts and everything. This patch of sand though here is where I had a bucket in the ground. You kind of see there's this line of open sand, hits right here to depression, goes up that way to that patch of sand, but also, I don't know if you can tell the line anymore. It goes that way, and kind of goes right up in there as well. We were running drift fences with pitfalls and funnel traps on them. So we did confirm, we didn't get the box turtles like we were hoping for. We did confirm a decent population of hognose snakes. Well, I think we had a couple adults and a lot of babies, so I guess I don't know how decent that would be, but I think I had 20 separate captures, although I at least caught an adult female, I think 4 different times. We've gotten a number of bull snakes, both in the traps and under our cover objects. Though I think Jim still says he hasn't seen them in the cover objects or under any of the cover. That's the board, and we have some metal out too. We've gotten racers under the boards, although I didn't get any traps. Garter snakes. We got a lot of tiger salamanders here, both in the funnels and the buckets. I flipped one under board one time. We had one, Jim Durbin's a local guy, does stuff with mainly moths, but he runs the insectsofiowa.org. It's a project I help him with. And we were out here one night, we set up a moth sheet over that way, and while we were sitting on his truck waiting for moths to come in, a salamander just decided to walk out from under his truck and right at our feet. So as I mentioned, it's not all wood. We put this stuff out too, you know, and this is a kind of newer piece, but nothing there today. So yeah, so and tiger salamanders, I think I was told were being considered, at least are listed as special concern. I mean, I think they should be a little higher than that. The bull snakes are special concern too, and hognose snakes probably should be. So, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing working with herb species in Iowa. Is we have these different designations. You know, everyone's familiar with what a threatened and endangered species is, and we have a couple steps below that where we have the species of special concern. And as far as I recall, and again, if someone's watching this and wants to correct me, please do. You know, it's like a special designation of just what the DNR should monitor. But as far as I can tell from Iowa code, from the laws, and this is from reading it, there's no actual extra penalties for doing stuff with special concern things, unless I'm reading something wrong. But then everything else is considered protected non-game, at least for reptiles and amphibians, birds, stuff like that. I think mammals are not. You have to be specifically protected as a mammal. So protected non-game just means it's protected. You can't kill it, can't collect it. So it's kind of protected. See, I got to recut this. I cut this earlier in the year, and the sumac's coming back up already. That's what all this lovely stuff is. So looks like next day of cutting, I'm hitting this area again. I'll bring the brush cutter up. This will take me not too long. I'll get this thinned out. You know, I've had people when I cut them. So. Sorry, I thought my thing told me it reached max file size. So apparently it's just it started on a new file, I guess. I hope. We'll find out. It says it's still recording. Anyways, you see, there's a lot of sumac here though, and the reason I wasn't cutting and treating is because there's a lot of it. And when I first started cutting, and this is thinned out. I mean, you're looking at sumac, and this is the thinned out area. There used to be no other vegetation here except for sumac, and it was too slow to cut and then treat, cut and treat, cut then treat. So I just went with cutting it, and then next year it grew back in, and kind of like this I just cut this year. It's already growing back in. I just did this in July. But you'll note it's thinner. It's a lot thinner than it was. And so I noticed that when I was hand cutting, and just kept hand cutting, and every time it'd be thinner and thinner and thinner. And of course now with the brush cutter, I'm thinking maybe when I come back up in a couple days, I'm gonna wear a chest harness and maybe put this right here on my chest, and we'll see if I can aim it downwards. And as I'm doing this, show everybody how that goes. But yeah, so then hopefully this will thin out even more and more the more I cut it. This area here was kind of thinned out already. A lot of other brush coming in and stuff though, but we're gonna get it all opened up eventually. That mound right there is an old junk pile, I think. There's some old fence and stuff in it. So I hit it by accident with the brush cutter. First day I was cutting around it. So yeah, this is where I got some old pictures, and maybe I'll try to, see if I figure out a movie editing software. I have some pictures I took standing from right here, showing all the sumac and the trees. So I'm gonna just kind of pan across here for a moment, and if I figure out how to editing videos, I will stick a still image in there to kind of compare to. So, and this is actually, if you see this bare spot here, is where I had a pile of sumac. I was just throwing it all there, and I had that probably 15 feet tall at one point. So yeah, when we come out, this is where we used to, when we were first cutting, this is where we used to pass through. So on our way in, you kind of see there's the hump here we're going over, and that's kind of part of the blowing sand. I have been told though, these cedars are probably staying. There's a couple species of bugs that use cedars, and so as much as we're trying to get rid of the smaller ones on the ridge, these ones are so big they're probably staying. This littler trees here that will probably come out, and I'll probably trim up these branches under here and at least open it up for the wind. So there's kind of a trail here I'm walking. I don't know how you tell it, and it's actually not a game trail. I wore this trail in from walking back and forth so much versus I was cutting. But it also kind of goes, I don't know how well if you can see this vegetation change here, if I can see it on the camera. You can kind of just, there's a line right in there, and it switches from, this is all sand prairie species or more, and that's back there is mesic or black dirt. I don't know if I'm using that term right. So this little ridge here is all sandy soil and tends to have more sand prairie species. And then, like I said, it's a kind of a line to that telephone pole. Well, kind of goes like a Bezier curve from the telephone pole over my truck, and over that side is black dirt. So that's your quick tour of the sand ridge and what we're doing. It does actually run past the truck, down around some private property on the backside, but hopefully it gives everyone a better overview. Normally I just take pictures, and I don't know how well that shows it off, so I probably should at some point here do a walk-in from here. We'll see. I'm sure there's plenty of time for more videos. So thanks everyone for watching, and have a good one.